Oh shit, NFL is back and I'm back. Okay, every year I do this where I think, oh man, I am done with NFL. I'm just going to be a PGA guy. And then after 8 months of PGA, and then I see those week one contests for NFL, I'm like, I'm an NFL guy all of a sudden. All right. So, am I excited to be back? Yes, I am. What's up, new guy? I'm the Degenerate 75. I'm a DFS content creator who is here to help you get a little bit better at DFS. Not by giving you picks and plays and all that shenanigans, but to help you with the process and to help you understand the game that exists within DFS. If that sounds interesting, I encourage you to hang around. If you find you like the cut of my jib, come check out that schedule right there. You can see I'm going to be doing content for Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. I'm going to be doing a Saturday live stream, and yes, I'm still going to be doing golf and college football because I am the definition of a tryhard. And just know that my very first touchdown hoedown stream is this Saturday, 7 o'clock, Lord's time zone as always. Be there because if you can't see by my little graphic, I'm giving away 5 $100 Millionaire Maker tickets, okay? If you want to be in it, there's basically 3 ways to be in it. 1, just go drop a comment on this video. Give me a like and a comment and tell me who your favorite play is this week. Number 2, when you see me tweeting the show out Friday on Twitter, just go give it a like and a retweet. But most importantly, have your happy ass there at the stream and be in the chat, and I'll draw from there. Let's go win a half $500,000 because I'm going to split the profits with you. Pretty easy to do. Get in there. All right. That is enough of the intro. Let's get to what matters. You're probably thinking, hey, that big ugly guy, Degenerate 75, there's another guy on the screen that's not near as ugly. You're right, pal. His name's Nejad, my good buddy, and a dude who is moving up in the world. I got to tell you, no one deserves to move up in this content world more than my dude, Sia. Sia, A, how are you doing? And B, can I hear a little bit about this big move that's happening for you? Because I'm excited.
James, DGen, thanks for having me on the show. Of course, I mean, football season. I'm excited just for that. I'm also excited for your 5X giveaway. 5 $100, like that's ridiculous.
Not a poor. So not a poor. I am not a poor.
5 $100 tickets to that contest is really awesome. Okay, so to answer your question, yeah, I'm actually, so my studio right now is pretty vacant. This whole condo area that I'm in is vacant because I'm moving to DC in just 3 days. I'm still going to be doing all my content for CBS Sports. That includes Fantasy Football Today, DFS, and all the stuff on the Early Edge and Sportsline. But I've got a studio deal up in Washington, D.C. I'm going to be co-hosting a show called By the Book for NBC Sports Washington to be rebranded Monumental Sports Network. And that starts in just a couple of weeks. So I got to drive myself up there and sort of start over where I started from, which was the D.C. area. That's actually where I'm from. So it'll be a really great experience. It's going to be a great show. I hope people can tune in. You can stream it and you can watch it on TV as well. So it's going to be awesome, and I'm really looking forward.
My dude, Sia moving up in the world. Good people doing good work. They move up. It's a fair world. Well, I think so, right? All right. Let's get to it. Okay, we're going to talk a little contest selection, but we're really just going to get to the slate. If you want to hear more about contest selection, I encourage you to be on the Saturday night stream. I will hit on it because I got to tell you, man, after doing PGA all year and then I see these NFL contests here, they just make me want to weep because they are so beautiful. There's such diversity in the contests you can play. They have such great payout structures. They are so good. And people that only play NFL have no idea how good they have it with these contest selections. So here's my question. If you're a normal guy and you're like, man, I'm excited for some NFL, I'm going to try some DraftKings this year, and you have $100, are you the kind of guy that's tossing maybe like 20 lineups in the big $5 Millionaire Maker where there's over 1 million entries in it? Are you a single bullet, maybe go chase the million and the $100 single entry? Or are you playing a more sustainable contests? I would love to hear this.
Yeah, so if it's $100 budget, like I'm the guy that's not really max entering. I'm the guy that's usually playing the 3 maxes or the single entries and some cash games. So that's really what I'd recommend to people, especially if, I mean, I don't want to classify it like whether you're new or not. I mean, I think this kind of applies across the board, especially early in the NFL season. I do think you want to be, this is just my opinion, I think you want to put a lot of that $100 in cash games, in double ups specifically. And just keep in mind, the beginning of the season, there's a lot of new money in there. I mean, for lack of a better word, a lot of casual money. So I think it's, first of all, that makes it easier to strike with tournaments, but it also makes it easier to maintain that bankroll in double ups as well. So if I had $100, James, I would do 50 of it would go to maybe one singular double up or maybe 2 different double ups that have like a decent amount of entries in them, maybe anything between 600 and 3,000. And then the other 50, I'd probably spend on single entry tournaments, maybe some 3 maxes. You know, I'd probably want to get 3 or 4 lineups in there. So however you want to divvy that up among your single entries, that $50. That's how I do it. I think half of it, especially early, should go to cash games.
So maybe like a $33 single entry, a $12 single entry, a $5 single entry. There's your $50 in GPPs, and then go do your $50 in head-to-heads. And let me just tell you, at college football, I spend about 80% of my money on cash games. And by the way, new guy, cash game just means double ups, 50-50s, head-to-heads, something where you only have to beat half the field to double your money, whereas these other things, these are GPPs, which are big contests where most of the prize pool goes to a very, very small percentage of people at the top of the contest. They're very, very different in how you build and how you want to be strategic with it. I just want to point out one contest in particular here, Sia, that they put up. Where is it at? It's I think it's called the First and 10. It's a $10 10 max, which, by the way, where did they get the idea for a 10 max? Maybe my PGA contest that everybody loves? Here it is. The first. So if I have $100 and I only want to play GPPs, go check out this 50K First and 10 max entry. First place is only 10% of the entire prize pool. Second place is half of first, which is always a good barometer to check. And 10th place is 1/10 of first. That is the nuts, right? So for $10, you can max enter. So you're not playing pros who are putting 150 in it, and you're only putting 10. You're playing the same amount of entries. It's $10 per entry. You're staying in your $100 budget, and this is a very sustainable contest because of the flat payout structure. I love this contest, and they also have a $40 one. Do you ever play in these, Sia?
Oh, first of all, I didn't know that there was that 10 max contest out there. I mean, I've already filled up a lot of the single entry ones, and I'm just kind of waiting, sort of biding time before I get into the other ones. But no, I love that contest that you pointed out. I'll definitely be getting into that one.
Yep. And there's a $40 one. There's just some real, I'm telling you, man, NFL people have no idea how good they have it. All right. Hey, the one contest you should be in is mine. I have a listener league, the Showdown Hoedown listener league. Go get in it. It's a $5 3 max, reduced rake, and it has a flat payout structure. Everything you would want. Go reserve it now. Don't make me be desperation tweeting out Sunday morning to fill this. You go put 3 contests or 3 lineup, reserve them 3 spots. Don't be a poor. Let's move on. Oh, by the way, don't forget, like and subscribe. It helps the big guy grow. We crossed 4,000. I appreciate every single one of you motherfathers for liking, subscribing, turning on your notifications, and telling friends, because you know YouTube ain't going to share our shit, so I know it's you guys. I appreciate every single one of you. Don't forget to leave that comment to get in the drawing. See ya. Let's get to it. This is the Rosetta Stone. Yes, this is the milquetoast version. If you want to see the fancy one, it looks more like this. You can see my college football one. This is what it will look like Saturday on the stream, but this is just the framework so we can go over all the games. We're going to touch on a couple plays from all the games, talk about them, and give our opinions just to get the juices flowing. We're not going to touch on every potential play, just to get your juices flowing. Saturday night will be the time to really dial in what we want to do, make our final decisions, make our stacks, and really start to form a plan to win GPPs or cash. Let's get going. See, this first game on here is Tennessee at New Orleans. Pretty gross total. The team totals are not very high, and these are kind of like what I think of as slow, boring offenses. Why don't you try to sell me on this one?
Well, I think a skinny stack is the only thing I would have in play here. It would be Derrick Henry, which, by the way, you got to remember the New Orleans Saints defense. They lost a lot of pieces. They tried to regain them in free agency in the draft, but this defense might not be as formidable as people think. And so I think it's a pretty good opportunity in week 1 for Derrick Henry to go off. I think you could play Derrick Henry solo, or you could potentially skinny stack him with, I don't even want to say Chris Olave. I want to go all the way down to Rashid Shaheed. And the reason there is because he's such a deep threat. And we know this Tennessee secondary is so vulnerable. The problem with playing Shaheed is there's so many other good values at the receiver position, likely in better totals, better games. So I probably won't even do that, but I at least think Derrick Henry's in play.
Yeah, and Shaheed is a great call because at $3,700, literally 160-yard touchdown he's gotten there for you, right? Like he has already gotten you there in a GPP, right? And I do buy the narrative that it's like Tennessee's all in on the season trading for DeAndre Hopkins. I think they're going to run Derrick Henry into the ground this year, and then they're just going to sell him off for scrap parts after this year. That's my narrative. I don't know if it's true, but it makes a lot of sense. So I think you're going to see almost certainly 20 touches from Derrick Henry. And if we know anything about Derrick Henry, when he gets 20 touches, it seems to usually go pretty well as far as production goes.
Yep.
But generally speaking, not a game that I'm definitely not running any of the quarterback stacks. If I'm going to get cute with a quarterback stack, it's not going to be with Carr and Tannehill. Get out of here. Now this game, I think this game is like probably my favorite sneaky shootout game on the slate. Jacksonville and the Colts, right? And to me, it's going to basically come down to, I think we saw last year Jacksonville's offense really mature and become almost an elite style offense, and this could be the big breakout year for Trevor Lawrence in year 3. To me, what this game is going to come down to, can the Colts push them? And that's all going to come down to one guy. We know who it is. It's Anthony Richardson. What do you think of this game? And is this a game that you would want to be running some big stacks in?
Yeah, so this is a game. First of all, I agree with your sentiment that it's sneaky, and the total is acceptable here. It's a pretty high total, and I get it. I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with Anthony Richardson. I will say I will play a little bit of him. I'll probably have him in a single entry or two where I either have him naked or I have him with Michael Pittman. But I got to say, I think Alec Pierce might be in play as well. I think both these secondaries are very susceptible. The problem with Trevor Lawrence is I really don't know who to stack him with. Is it Ridley? Is it Christian Kirk? I think more likely it could even be Evan Ingram. I think Ingram, when we saw this last year against the Colts, he got a lot of targets. So I think they're all in play. I think Etienne is really, really sneaky as well. And honestly, I might have a play where Etienne's the only player I take from this game because I think he'll be relatively low owned. But I do think an Anthony Richardson naked or stack is in play as well.
I'll tell you this. This is if I'm going to play a Trevor Lawrence stack. Here's the problem. I think you have to have you're probably going to want to double stack Trevor Lawrence because if he has a big game that could win you a GPP, he's going to carry two guys across the finish line. But that means I now have to have Etienne, Ridley, Kirk, Zay Jones, and Ingram because those are all very, very viable guys. And now I'm probably having to build like 10 or 20 Trevor Lawrence lineups just to get a proper rotation of all the guys that he could potentially go off with, which is never appealing. I like quarterbacks whose stacks are very obvious, right? Like if I'm stacking Anthony Richardson, I'm probably single stacking him because I think he's a guy that can get a lot done with his legs. And to me, it's basically Pittman or Pierce are the only two that I would consider stacking him with. And that actually makes him more appealing as a stackable option than somebody like Trevor Lawrence because Trevor Lawrence spreads the ball around so much.
Yeah, and for the record, the only reason I like Anthony Richardson because I do think he could be kind of a disaster is because of his price. I mean, I do think, especially in week one, I think this is a decent enough matchup where he could absolutely 3x, 4x value here.
Yeah, to me, he's either going to have a monster game or just be atrocious, right?
And real quick, for the record, Deion Jackson's likely to be some chalk here. I mean, he's sort of an obvious play with Zach Moss likely not playing. So, he's not going to rush for a lot of yards, but he likely gets some receptions. It'll be very easy for him to pay off that price.
Pretty sure he had a really big game last year when he got in a starting role too. Like everybody's like, he's the obvious play. And like, no, it's Deion Jackson. He sucks. And I swear he had like 30 points. I remember that game.
He had, I believe, 9 receptions in that game.
Yeah, it was which sustainable. Running backs getting 9 receptions, very sustainable. That's sarcasm, new guy. You chill out. All right, Tampa Bay at Minnesota. I think everybody loves Minnesota this year. The best thing you can say about Minnesota is that their usage is very, very concentrated, right? Madison seems like he is definitely going to be leading the backfield. Of course, the best player in the NFL, at least offensively, in my opinion, Justin Jefferson, is the alpha. You don't even have Thielen stealing any of his targets anymore. To me, the real question is going to come down to what to do with Tampa Bay. Is there a chance that Baker Mayfield could actually be effective for once in his career and push the pace of this game? Because if so, this becomes a very nice game with Minnesota having a 26-point total. If Tampa Bay can get to 21, 24, maybe 28 points, this game does have some sneaky shootout vibes to it. What do you think?
Totally agree. Yeah, I think it's sneaky shootout potential. I don't know that I'm going to end up stacking this game because I just don't like the quarterbacks too much. The one thing I'll say about Justin Jefferson, by the way, you pronounced Jamar Chase wrong in terms of the best offensive player in the league. But, listen, I like Justin Jefferson, but we have to keep in mind, like TJ Hawkinson gets targets. Addison likely to get targets. And don't forget about KJ Osborne. Like we could see a scenario where Jefferson just doesn't get the targets that we think throughout the entire season, but also this game. Now, he can explode, obviously, but I'm not getting there with Jefferson in a lot of lineups. I'll probably play him here and there. I mean, it's one of those things I haven't really decided. I know I want to be over the field on him if I'm going to play him at all, but I might end up being out on him because I'm going to be playing a lot of Chase and Tyreek Hill. On the other side, I think Godwin is very interesting. And I got to say, from a punt standpoint, we mentioned Shaheed. We're probably going to mention your boy Marvin Mims later. Trey Palmer's at least interesting. I'm not 100% sure what Mike Evans' status is, but if they're playing comeback ball and Trey Palmer is in there in 2, or I should say 3 wide receiver sets, at $3K, he could be a nice like skinny stack option with Justin Jefferson because of the price break you're getting with that part of the skinny stack.
And TJ Hawkinson, I haven't seen the latest, but he is at least questionable for week 1 last I saw. So if he's out, I think that adds a new dynamic to it too, right? I think that makes me more interested in maybe a second or third wide receiver from Minnesota. And the other thing I'll say about Justin Jefferson is the pricing for this first week is baby shit soft. And $8,800 is normally steep, but with how soft the pricing is and so many good punts here in week 1, I think you're going to see Justin Jefferson's ownership through the roof because it's just going to be so easy to get him in. And he's just an auto free square because he's just so freaking good. Noticeably better than Jamar Chase. If that, just my opinion. I'm a simple man with an opinion. All right. Let's get over to Arizona, Washington. A pretty gross game. Just a disgusting total. I think Arizona is playing the Caleb Williams sweepstakes right now. They just want all, they want to go from one old OU quarterback to another one. And, Josh Dobbs, they're just so gross. And I'm a big buyer on Sam Howell's upside. I'm a big buyer on the Commanders' upside. But, man, I just think that this is going to be a boring game, and I just don't know if I can get there. Try to sell me on this one, please.
There's nothing to sell. I don't even think I'm going to be in on Dotson. And I really question how much Washington's going to need to push the ball down the field. I think it's going to be a relatively conservative game plan, given that the defense is really going to show up against the Joshua Dobbs-led Arizona Cardinals. So, I think, as much as I want to consider like a Brian Robinson, because maybe he falls into the end zone 3 times, he's splitting with Antonio Gibson at the end of the day. McLaurin's injured. I think Dotson's interesting, but I think he'll be a little chalky. I'm just really not interested in anybody in this game.
Yeah, I like if I were going to play somebody, it would be a Howell, and then I really like stacking him with McLaurin and Dotson. But the thing is I need Howell's upside. If I'm going to play a guy like that, I want him to have 3 or 4 touchdown potential, a 300-yard bonus, stuff like that. And I just don't see any way that this game script is going to play out like that. Arizona is not going to be efficient enough to push the pace of this game, and to me, that really kills the upside of Howell. I know at 4,900 he doesn't need a massive upside, but to win a GPP, you're going to need your quarterback to get 25 points, and I just don't see any way he gets there in a slow, sloggy, boring game. So as much as I love Howell this season, I can't get there week 1 because he's just not a GPP. I would actually almost consider him for cash, but not for GPPs.
And you got to ask yourself in GPPs, would you want to play Sam Howell in that game script or Jordan Love against the Chicago Bears, who's only $100 more? So if you're deciding between the two, I think it's Jordan Love, 10 out of 10.
Yep, I agree. I'm a big buyer on Jordan Love too. All right, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, 2 teams that I'm actually relatively bullish on this year. Like, I'm pretty high on both of them, especially Pittsburgh is one of my bigger sleeper offenses this year. But for whatever reason, when they play each other, I lose interest in it, right? Because they're both so slow and sloggy, and they, I think this is a game that probably will have the fewest plays run of any game because of how slow both of these offenses are. And because of that, right there, if this game just has like 5 or 10 fewer plays than all the other games, you're already losing about 10% of all of their stats just by having fewer plays, because every time a play is run, that's more chance for fantasy points. So as much as I like guys in this game, I don't know if I like them in this game versus each other. Can you convince me otherwise, Sia?
There's nobody I want to play here. I think the San Francisco defense is going to be completely legit. I think Bosa is going to be back on the field for this game. I'm hearing some stuff right now on that. So we'll see about that. But Christian McCaffrey is at least interesting because I don't think people are going to be paying up for him in this matchup. The one thing I'll say is Brock Purdy's likely to be dumping the ball off a lot. He didn't throw it down the field, maybe because of that elbow injury in the preseason. So with that in mind, McCaffrey could get a ton of dump offs, and we know what he can do after the catch. But I just don't think I'm getting there with anybody.
If I could sell anybody on McCaffrey, here would be the point I would make. First of all, I think he is going to be criminally under-owned for just being the best running back in the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. And at 8,700, it is not impossible to get him in. The same logic we used on Justin Jefferson at 8,800 is the same reason we can get Christian McCaffrey in our lineups at 8,700, because there's such soft pricing all around this week 1 slate. Now, is this the greatest matchup? No, but anytime I can get McCaffrey at single-digit ownership as the best running back in the NFL, I think you at least need to be given it a strong consideration.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind Kyle Shanahan gets his guys in space. And, that's part of the reason you acquired Christian McCaffrey. It just makes it that much more difficult to cover all of the San Francisco 49ers. So I don't care how good your defense is, what the situation is, what the total is. If Christian McCaffrey catches, let's say, 8 balls, then, how many of those does he take, to the house potentially? And I think the answer to that is maybe 1 or more.
And Pickett, Jaylen Warren, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Freiermuth, I'm high on all those guys this year. I just don't know if I'm going to get there in my week 1 lineups. I just don't like this game environment. And to me, in the NFL, because if you guys don't know, I'm a college football guy. In college football, you don't have to worry about as much correlation because the plays get there. But in the NFL, correlation and good game scripts are infinitely more important than they are in college football. So when I see a bad game script, I'm usually avoiding that game. That's just how it is.
Yep.
You don't have those running backs that get 40 carries in the NFL like they do in college football. Okay, Cincinnati, Cleveland, another game that I just love as a sneaky shootout game. We have seen Deshaun Watson be an elite quarterback. He was not elite last year by any means, right? But he was rusty. He was, hadn't played him forever. And now this is a year that he really could break out, right? And I think with Cleveland getting rid of Kareem Hunt, yes, they still have Nick Chubb. They're still going to probably be a run-first offense, but probably a little less so. And I think that you could see Deshaun Watson have some big plays, break the slate. And we know that when Cincinnati gets pushed, they are unequivocally a top 3 offense in the NFL. So this game has some sneaky shootout vibes if Watson hits a big play or two. Are you with me or against me on this one?
Oh, I'm totally with you on both sides. And we talked about this a little bit when you came on to FFT DFS, because I think Watson is just such an unknown commodity right now. And it's to the extent that people just don't want to play him. And you got to look at the price tag. It's 6,000. It's against Cincinnati. And I don't even know that we can call it sneaky anymore with a 47.5-point total, which is starting at least to creep up to that 51 that we see with Justin Herbert and Tua. I think it's the second highest total on the slate. I think Watson to Njoku is an interesting stack. I think Watson to Amari Cooper is an interesting stack. And you can run it back with Jamar Chase, who I love. Both of these secondaries are susceptible. It's the front sevens that you don't really want to deal with. And the reason I love this game is because I shouldn't say nobody. A lot of people are going to ignore Joe Burrow too because of the injury, because he hasn't really been in the press. I think people see this Cleveland defense as somewhat formidable, but Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase with some sort of run back on the other side makes a ton of sense to me, because I don't think Joe Mixon and company are going to effectively run the ball against the Browns. So I like this game stacked both ways.
I'll give you a real gross one. I don't even mind a Burrow Mixon Chase stack. I think that or a Burrow Mixon Higgins, whatever you want to go there. I don't love paying up for both those receivers, but I do love paying for one of those receivers and then getting some Joe Mixon, who I think is just going to be an absolute bell cow running back this year for them with P. Ryan gone. I just don't think Chase Brown is ready to take on that role, nor is Chris Evans. So I think Mixon is going to get more third down work, and I think that he is, if he gets 6 catches out of the backfield along with a rushing touchdown, he could be a complementary piece to a Burrow Chase Mixon stack that could get there. You run it back with Amari Cooper or Njoku or Chubb, whoever you want, right? I'm really interested in that game. Really interested.
Me too.
All right, Atlanta, Carolina. This is one that I think instantly everybody will just mark off. No one is going to play this game because you have a lower total. You have two offenses who are, I want to say perceived as being bad, but I think they're actually bad. But you have some home run hitters in this game, some real home run hitters. And if there's a game that just no one's going to play that I think could be surprising when it comes to fantasy point totals, it might actually be this game. Can you get there with me on this one with some of these home run hitters maybe breaking this game open?
Yeah, I mean, I can get there with you, but not from a stacking standpoint, obviously, because we're not really looking to Bryce Young and Desmond Ridder to pay off their prices even or break the slate. But I think Bijan Robinson is interesting. I think I'm going to largely avoid this game, but I think if you wanted to play and just take a chance on Miles Sanders' health and that he's going to get a full complement of touches, I think that's okay. I think Bijan Robinson, that's okay. And I think if you want to try to find some value, I don't know that you need to go here, but it might be Adam Thielen at 4,800 and Jonathan Mingo at 3,200 as the starting receivers for this game. We'll have to wait to confirm that. But if that's the case, I mean, I do think there's potential value there. I think Atlanta's going to take care of business in this game, though. And I think they're going to kind of dominate on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, if I were going to get into this game, I think the best thing to do is that little skinny stack. You think Miles Sanders is going to continue that efficiency he had last year in Philadelphia? Well, then running back with a Drake London or a Kyle Pitts, two guys who are probably primed for big breakout seasons, right? The Bijan at 8,000, that just seems like a trap to me. I think people are going to be very disappointed when they see that he probably is only going to get 15 touches week 1. He is not going to be a top 3 running back to start the year. He may get there by the end of the year, but they are going to throttle him in. It's not like Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier just are dead. They're still on the team. They're still serviceable backs. They're going to get their touches. All right, Houston, Baltimore. This actually one has I believe it's the biggest line on the slate. I don't have all the lines memorized, but a 10-point spread's pretty big. I think most people accept that Houston is going to suck. Baltimore is a team that I really like. I just worry if Houston can push them, because when Lamar Jackson's 8,000, he really needs to probably have a 35-point game to really give you a chance at winning a GPP. And I just don't know if he can get the 35 points in a game where they're not going to be pushed at all. Can you get me on Lamar? Because I want to play him. I really do.
The thing is when the pricing came out some time ago, I was like, all right, I'm putting Lamar in a lot of my life. I was like, I'm going to be super overweight on Lamar Jackson. I've just had to pedal it back because I don't really see Houston pushing Baltimore at all. First of all, this game's in Baltimore. We look at Houston's implied total. Honestly, I think it's probably going to come under than that, because I think Stroud is in really big trouble. This offensive line is in trouble to some degree with injuries. Not playing Dameon Pierce. The only guy I don't think I'm going to stack much Lamar. I'll probably have a few lineups because I told myself when pricing came out that I would, but it might just be, Lamar, Zay Flowers, because the Zay part of that is cheap. And I run it back with Nico Collins at 4,700, who I do think in garbage time is going to get a lot of touches. I think he's going to be the primary receiver, but I'm kind of fading off Lamar a little bit now. I think J.K. Dobbins is in play in a potential blowout, though.
Here's what I'll say. This year, I'm really focused on my process at NFL. And this year, I'm only going to play 20 lineups a week. Every week, I've already said it, which contest I'm playing in. And I've already decided that, you're really at NFL, you're just trying to hit one big week a year to pay off for your whole year and hopefully profit, right? If you think you're going to grind GPPs every week and make money, you're not gonna. They're not designed that way. And so if I'm only running 20 lineups, I've told myself that at most I'm running 2 stacks. Sometimes I'll run 1 stack if I love it, but at most 2 stacks. And if I'm only running 2 stacks, as much as I love my boy Lamar, and I think he's going to be criminally under-owned as probably the best quarterback on this slate, I just don't think I can have him be one of my 2 stacks, right? Because, if those are my 2 stacks, those are my babies that I'm building my rosters around. I've got to absolutely love them, and I just don't love Lamar's upside in this. So as much as I could be warm to it, I'm not playing 150 lineups, because if I were, I would be open to a few Lamar Jackson lineups. When you're only playing 20, you got to shit or get off the pot and really make your decisions, and I'm only running at max 2, and Lamar just can't be one of those. So I love you, Lamar, just not this week, brother.
Yeah, I totally get that. And for the record, I think that's interesting, the 20 lineups and the 2 stacks thing, because I'm usually in terms of different lineups in that maybe 8 to 12, maybe 10 to 15 range. And usually there's 3 stacks that I'm kind of leaning on. So that's interesting. I mean, I'm just kind of taking this all in. 2 is obviously a very narrow way to do it, but that's how you hit big, right? I mean, that's obviously if one of those stacks hit, or if the right stack hits up the 2, you're winning all the money most likely.
So often when people think about their stacks, they'll say, well, I have 5 Lamar lineups, but the problem is if you're going to build Lamar lineups, it's not only that you need to mix and match the guys you're stacking him with, right? Maybe you need a Mark Andrews, maybe you need a Zay Flowers. You got to mix and match those, but then you also have to mix and match your secondary correlations, right? I needed to have this other game mixed with him, and so you have to have a lot of iterations of your Lamar stacks, or whoever your stacks are, to hit, because even when your stack does hit, sometimes your secondary pieces don't hit, and you need multiple versions of that to get there. That's why I like to really condense it down. That's what works for me. That's part of my process, but that doesn't need to be for everybody.
No, I like it though.
All right, Green Bay, Chicago. I think this is a game that people is going to be sneaky chalky. I think more people are going to be on this game than others think. Right? I'm a buyer in Jordan Love. Justin Fields, I don't know. He's kind of a magic man, just busting 70-yard touchdown runs all the time. But I do think that he will be better this year. Christian Watson, I just love. I'm a Christian Watson slut, and at $6,000, I don't know how he's not going to be in every one of my lineups. So. Go ahead and tell me, is this the game? Is this the game, or is this one to fade and let other people go get on this sneaky, chalky game?
So, I mean, I love this game. It's Jordan Love to Christian Watson for me. I actually built a lineup with Jordan Love double stacked with Watson and Musgrave. And I think I ran that one back with DJ Moore, which obviously makes sense. So, I mean, I think I don't mind the Justin Fields play. I don't mind the Justin Fields stack to DJ Moore, and you run it back. I think you could maybe run it back 2 ways with Christian Watson and a low-priced Luke Musgrave. But yeah, I like the pieces of this game, specifically Justin Fields, to a much lesser extent DJ Moore, but Christian Watson, Luke Musgrave, Jordan Love. I'm not a Jordan Love guy. But at 5,000, I do think this game, we have a pretty low total, but this is what you have to understand something. It's week 1, and even the handicappers or even the bookmakers who are making these lines, they are kind of going off some data that really isn't here yet. So I do think some of these lines are probably inefficient, especially when it comes to the totals. And I'm not saying this is going to be a super high-paced game and it's going to be a shootout, but it wouldn't surprise me if this landed on 47 or 48 at the end of the day. So something to keep in mind when you're looking at those totals in the first couple of weeks.
My biggest concern is just that it becomes a run game, right? Like Dylan and Aaron Jones are getting a ton of running for Green Bay, which really caps Jordan Love's upside. And then you have Justin Fields, Deontay Foreman, Khalil Herbert running the hell out of the ball for Chicago. All of a sudden you look up, each team has only ran 54 plays and the game is over. It was 21-17. And in a game like that, with only each team running 54 plays in 21-17, none of those guys are probably going to be in an optimal type lineup to win you a GPP. That's my only concern, is the game script that could potentially come from this game.
It is a huge concern because the Bears front seven is not very good at all. So they could, especially for Jordan Love's first game of the season, they could take that conservative approach. It would almost take Justin Fields really starting out really well and the Bears getting on top early.
Philadelphia, everybody's favorite. Not only are they a great offense led by, I can't believe I'm saying this, a great quarterback. When Jalen Hurts was at OU, I never thought he would be this good. But they're so concentrated, right? It's so clear who he's going to throw the ball to. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. That's it, right? Occasionally Quez Watkins, they'll throw him a bone, right? But you got to just love that offense. 24-point total. But here's the real question to me. can New England have some success on offense? Because they were kind of garbage last year, right? They just weren't very good. Outside of Ramondre Stevenson, they just weren't a very good offense. Is this someone where the Patriots can maybe get to 24, 28 points, and that really helps Philadelphia get to 35? And if Philadelphia gets to 35 with that concentrated offense, you know those guys are going to be in the optimals.
Yeah, no chance. There's no chance. I like the under in this game. This is a game I am completely avoiding. I love Philly. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFL. Breaking news there, and I love I love you that you've said this word so many times, the concentration of targets, because that's like something I really, really look into. You can't just look at the totals, right? You got to look at, well, where is the actual production going? And I love, like, normally AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts, but this is a stay away. I think this New England defense is pretty good. They're playing at home. I just think this is going to be kind of a slower back and forth game.
And let's not get it twisted. Philadelphia's defense is elite, right? They didn't make the Super Bowl last year just because of their offense. They had an elite defense, and then the dude they took in the first round, the guy from Georgia that fell to number 9, he's unbelievable. So I imagine their defensive line's only going to be even more dominant. And that makes me interested in their running backs. But I think that running back is going to be like a true, just like they're going to spread it out. Philadelphia just does not believe in lead backs. So as electric as DeAndre Swift is, I think you're looking at max 10 to 12 touches for him.
Mm-hmm.
So who do I play? I just, maybe Ramondre, but do I want to play Ramondre against Philly's D? I don't know, man. I love Ramondre. I'm a big Ramondre guy. I just think this is a terrible matchup.
If he was priced lower, I'd consider it, but I'm not paying $7,000 for Ramondre in that matchup.
All right. The Rams in Seattle, a game I absolutely love, right? Because everybody's just disgusted with the Rams. They think they're toast. I'm already warm to Seattle, and I think the Rams could be sneaky high. But now it seems we're getting the vibe that I just read that Cooper Kupp is probably not going to play this week 1. The hamstring issues are going to keep him out. And when he's out, I mean, that's one of the most electric players in the NFL who's now out. It really kills my interest in this game because I don't think the Rams have any real chance at scoring 24, 28 points without Cooper Kupp, right? And if they're not doing that, I think that keeps Seattle probably playing slow, not pushing the ball down the field. And what goes from one of my favorite games now goes to one of my least favorite games simply just because Cooper Kupp is out. Can you try to sell me on this one at all?
No, I'm off this one. I think there might be some value plays involved here with, like, maybe, I don't know, in 2 wide receiver sets, is Puka Nacua, is he going to be one of the guys in there? I mean, he's a flat 3K. I mean, Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee's interesting, but no, I'm not playing I'm not playing Geno Smith. I think DK Metcalf is interesting, but because of all the stuff you just said, I think I'm going to end up being off DK Metcalf in this one too, although he would be the one piece that I would consider at 7,000.
Yeah, I agree. Because, he definitely, when all else fails at wide receiver, this is a good rule I learned. Just go with physical specimens, all right? And let's face it, DK Metcalf is a physical specimen. AJ Brown is a physical specimen. So if you're ever going to just go, who do I go receiver? Just go with the specimens. And that's DK Metcalf because he could just, straight big dog somebody and catch a 70-yard touchdown and then another slant that he takes to the house. But man, Geno Smith was a guy that was really on my radar. I think 6,100 is too cheap for him. But now that I think that this game could be a little, slower, maybe this is just a Kenneth Walker game, right? Maybe this is just a Zach Charbonnet game. Those are some guys to consider. But man, I loved this game. But now that I'm getting word that Kupp's out, I think I'm going to fade it.
I will say one thing though. I think because Kupp is out, and I think Cam Akers at 6,200 is at least interesting. If this game starts to accelerate from a scoring standpoint, I could see him catching a lot of balls and getting a lot of run. I mean, in redraft, I'm out on Cam Akers, but that's the difference between redraft and DFS week 1. I think this would be a place where nobody's really going to be interested in playing him. And I could see Sean McVay kind of designing the offense around him specifically.
I mean, he is good. He has really good games, and he can be a good player. I don't think he can sustain it for a whole year, but remember, we ain't playing a whole year. We're playing DFS, which is 1 week, so let's go try to get it while we can, and a fresh Cam Akers in this game isn't the worst take I've ever heard. All right, this is going to be the mega chalk game, and of course, it's a game I'm very open to. I'm the biggest buyer in Justin Herbert this year. I've had him higher in my best ball rankings than everybody by a country mile. I just love him. I love the Chargers. I love that they have Kellen Moore as the coordinator now. They're playing Miami, who is fast. It's going to be beautiful weather in San Diego or in LA, excuse me. And so this game checks every box I would want. Tell me how I could possibly fade it.
Well, it just depends on whether you want to fade it from a stacking standpoint. I'm grabbing pieces from this game regardless, and it's probably going to be on the Justin Herbert side. And by the way, I'm with you. you and I are both over the field on Justin Herbert, just in general, in terms of our perception of this offense. I think he could lead the league in passing yards. I think, if the offensive line stays healthy, which it didn't last year, if Herbert stays healthy, which he didn't last year, if the receivers stay healthy, which they didn't last year, and then they upgraded with Quentin Johnston, I think Herbert's going to go off. But with that said, listen, a Herbert, Keenan Allen stack with a Tyreek Hill run back makes a lot of sense. You double it back with Raheem Mostert, who's likely to get the lion's share of the carries. That makes sense too. It's very likely, though, that I just take pieces of this game and I go with maybe some, I should say, more contrarian builds, just because I'm not doing the stacks in this game. But it's very possible I go Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, and I run it back with, let's say, Keenan Allen, for example. And then I just walk away and hope that the quarterback that I took at, let's say, 5K or 6K in Watson's case, 5K in Love's case, just hope that they go off.
You run it back with Mike Williams. Okay, if I'm a buyer in Justin Herbert, I'm an even bigger buyer in Mike Williams. I think that he takes over as the true number one there. And I think you said it best. When there's a super chalky game, the key isn't – the best play is usually not to completely fade that game. There's a reason that it's going to be the highest scoring game, or that's why it's projected to be the highest scoring game. And so what I have always found to be the best way to play it is not to fade it, but to grab pieces of it, right? Go grab a little skinny stack out of it and don't make it your primary stack. Hope another main stack goes off, and then you just grab the right pieces from this game. That is at least for me, I have found is always the best way to play it. So super sage advice coming from Sia there.
All right. Thank you.
All right. The Raiders and the Broncos. Let's see. I can never be excited about a team whose quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo or Russell Wilson. Just not two guys that scream DFS plays, right? Now, this Russell Wilson from 3 years ago, that's a different story. But Russell Wilson in 2023, not real warm to him, right? I'm actually kind of warm to Javonte. Javonte is a super talent. He is a top 5 most talented running back in the NFL. How concerned are we that he is back? And do you think that he will get a full complement of action, or do you think they ease him back in? Because that's the only thing keeping me from stacking Javonte week 1.
It's funny because in redraft leagues, I've taken Javonte Williams, I think, in pretty much every draft, because he falls so far, because I don't think people are really caught up to what his progress has been. So he's playing in week 1, to your point. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I do think he gets spelled a little bit more often than we'll want, but it wouldn't surprise me if he has somewhere between 12 and 14 carries and gets a few, targets as well. And against this Raiders defense, that might be all he needs if he truly is in good shape. Now, granted, they did invest in Samaje Perine to some degree, so it would make a lot of sense, considering that investment, that they trot Samaje Perine out early and let Javonte Williams kind of rest up a little bit. I don't mind the Javonte play. I don't think I'm going there. This is a skinny stack game for me. I think I'm going to play some Devontae Adams. I might play some Josh Jacobs, but it's really going to be skinny stack like Devontae Adams, Marvin Mims, Devontae Adams, Cortland Sutton, who are just so cheap. Sutton at 5,200, Mims at 3,000. They'll both see the field a ton. And I just think Devontae Adams is getting overlooked because of the Jimmy G factor, and he's just going to be a target monster, probably in a negative game script. So I think that's where I'm going with this one.
I agree. Devontae Adams is a dude I never like at season long and at best ball, but at DFS, he's the nuts, because about 4 or 5 times a year, he just breaks the slate. And if I'm going to get him at discounted ownership versus his peers up there as the more expensive wide receivers, give him to me, because there's 4 or 5 times a year that dude will just win you a GPP going for 39 points. He doesn't have good games. He has great games. So always open to a low-owned Devontae. And yes, Denver has the best skinny stack run back options with Marvin Mims, Cortland Sutton, very affordable guys, right? And even Javonte, if you think that he's going to get more than 15 touches, right? Mm-hmm. All right. Do you have any concluding thoughts on this slate? We got through all the games. Anything you want to bestow upon the people?
Not really. I think in terms of some of the chalk, like some of the value, I do think a lot of people are likely, and maybe this will change, but I think a lot of people are likely to go to names like Deion Jackson and maybe Marvin Mims, some of those cheap receivers. But I think the way to get different, if that's what you're trying to do, is take pieces from like that big Chargers game, but maybe stack somewhere else. But the thing is, and James, I'd love your advice here. I wonder, it sounds to me like one of your 2 stacks is this Chargers Dolphins game, and probably on the Justin Herbert side, which makes a ton of sense. I guess my question for you is, with all the chalk, like some of the chalk value that's out there, how are you differentiating? I think we might have just talked about that in terms of some of the plays you're leaning on, but that's really all I'm thinking about. If I'm taking a chalky stack, I'm trying to differentiate somewhere else. But a lot of times I'm just fading the chalky stack, because honestly, I think that there's some of these games, especially in week 1, that are just kind of marked inefficiently from a total standpoint. I think we could get some games that score a little bit more than people think.
The answer to this is very easy. I will only play a Justin Herbert stack if I can't find two other stacks that I really love, right? Like let's say I convince myself of Joe Burrow and Brock Purdy or whatever, right? And I convince myself those are the two stacks I want to go. Well, that would get me off a Justin Herbert stack because I love him, and I will just go play some periphery pieces from that game, right? Some skinny stacks from it. But I'm not going to play stacks that I do not like. So let's say I only like Joe Burrow stacks this week. All right, well, I don't know if I want to just run a single all Joe Burrow stack this week. So in that case, then I am going to probably play a Justin Herbert stack. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go make my secondary correlation pieces from really slimy games, right? Maybe I'll go put a Miles Sanders and a Drake London in there as a skinny stack in that one because ain't nobody running that correlation, right? So I look at how chalky my main stack is, and then I use that to determine what type of secondary pivots I should have with it. And when you're only doing 20 lineups, you can babysit your lineups like this. And that is the one process point I want to make. If you're making lineups, this is another reason I only like to make 20 lineups a week. I can babysit them. And if you want to be a good DFS NFL player, you should be tracking your lineups during the early set of games and seeing if you're off to a good start or a bad start, and you should have a contingency plan for the afternoon. If I'm off to a good start, these are the guys I'm going to play in the afternoon because they're safer or they're chalkier, and because I'm ahead of everybody, I can afford that. But if things get off to a bad start in the morning, here is what I am running in the afternoon. These are my really high upside guys that nobody's playing that can help me get back in a GPP if I get off to a slow start. Think through your lineups like that. Don't just simply randomly pick some guys and not have a game plan, because if you're a successful DFS player, you're thinking about the whole day, you're thinking about late swap, and you're using the most powerful tool that exists, which is called late swap, to gain an advantage. And if you're not doing that, you're just a casual. You'll never find success at NFL DFS.
Yeah, and it's funny you say you mentioned late swap too, because with that 10 entry content, that 10 entry max that you mentioned, or even a 3 max or whatever, a 20 max, sometimes I'll submit the same exact lineup. And with the intention, and to be honest with you, I'm hoping, let's say it's 2 of the same exact lineup, I'm hoping the lineup's doing well. But just depending on where I'm at going into the 4 o'clock game, I'll keep one of the lineups because I do think it has, top 10 potential or what have you. And then I'll just switch whatever 2 players, maybe sort of in a contrarian way, because I think that lineup can spike if I have the right non-chalky combo. So I think when it comes to late swap, those are things you can do as well. As you don't have to have just the one lineup and just decide whether you need to swap out. You can have 2 of the same lineup, keep one, and then make your swap with the other.
That's such a good strategy. Honestly, that's so good. If you love a lineup, put it in there twice and have a contingency plan that if this gets off to a hot start, I'm going to switch these 2 to these 2. Or if you're like in first place in a GBB, you could start saying, well, I'm going to go do this one and switch off one piece, keep this other one as the chalky piece to kind of block some people out, but still have the upside to move up with the other one. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, a quick run through. If you think that Rosetta Stone is cool, this is what it's going to look like Sunday night or Saturday night on the stream. Don't forget, 7 o'clock, Lord's time zone. Be there for the live stream. I'm going to be giving away all those tickets. I'm going to have the Rosetta Stone up. And don't forget, if you want that Rosetta Stone, come check out my site, dgen75.com. I can assure you it is the fastest growing site in DFS. We're just a little guy taking on all the big tout sites, and we do just fine. If you want a community, you want a place where we celebrate the community and the winners, and it's not about the guys running the site, I encourage you to come check it out. And if you're like, hey, man, I don't know if I want to do it, well, I'll make you a deal. Sign up for my football newsletter, which is in this description, and I will give you a free week on the website. Why do I give a free week? Because everybody signs up after they get a free week. So go do it. Sign up for my newsletter, show the editor, and we will give you a free week on the site, and then you'll just hang around, and we'll all be winners, right? And, of course, be there Saturday night, 7 o'clock. I'm giving away those 5 tickets. Don't forget to go leave your comment. Don't forget to like and retweet on Twitter, and don't forget to be there live in the chat. Those will all get you there. Once again, I've got to thank probably my favorite dude in the entire industry. His name is Nejad. Some would even call him a friend. So, yeah, tell the people where they can find you on Twitter, on the YouTubes, anything you want to do. Sell it now. Sell it hard.
Yeah, you can find me at Nejad on Twitter, at Nejad Sports on Instagram, if people are doing that these days. You can find me at Win Daily on some occasions for some NFL and some golf stuff. I do a lot of my content at Sportsline, which is one of the arms of CBS Sports, on the early edge. And then I'll tell you from a DFS standpoint, I do a game-by-game breakdown, kind of like what we just did with James, with Mike McClure, who's a pro DFS player. He's really, really talented, a lot of contrarian builds, a lot of kind of different, unique ideas. We do that every single Friday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So that's, again, a game-by-game breakdown going into every single main slate of the NFL season. So try to subscribe to that podcast if you can. And one last thing, I do a show that has nothing to do with sports, even though it's called a sports show. It's Nejad Sports on YouTube. If you could subscribe to that channel, it's really about motivating people, creating healthy habits, inspiring people. James has been on that show. Pat Mayo's been on that show. Daniel Negreanu's been on that show. The coach has been on that show. Prince of Mukamara, you name it. So subscribe to that. It's a lot of motivational content, sort of outside the context of this sports stuff. But I do think it's extremely beneficial. So check it out.
Football's here, mother fathers. Let's go have some fun. Let's kick some ass. I hope to see you guys finding some success in this. Remembering that it is a marathon. It is not a sprint. To have a process in place, try to think of it as 18 weeks that you are just trying to get that one. Play sustainably. Have fun with DFS. And remember, you're not going to grind a profit every week. But if you're having fun with it and you have a process, you can become a break-even player and maybe even spike a monster once this year. We will be back next Tuesday. And I believe I will be with Tambo as we will start doing the preview show together. We'll see you then. Enjoy this outro.